Parshas Behaalosecha. In this week's parsha, first few pesukim of the Torah reading talks about the high priest Aaron going into the tabernacle, the Mishkan, and lighting up the menorah. And the verse itself is interesting because it says Behaalosecha haneres should cause the light to go up. It's an interesting choice of verbiage, and from this we learn that the idea is that Kohen will go in and he'll bring a flame close to the wick until the wick goes up by itself. We want to study this whole concept of the flame and the wick for a little bit and see if we can derive some interesting insights from it. In the book of Proverbs, King Solomon says, "A lamp of God, the soul of man." There's a comparison between the two. So we want to take a look at the physical lamp, the anatomy of the lamp, and then use that to look into the human soul. So the flame surges upwards as if it's trying to tear free from the wick and lose itself into the energy of the heavens. It's drawn to the bigger flame, so to speak. But even as the flame tries to leave the wick, it tightens its grip on the wick, because if it would let go, it would disappear and become nullified completely into the greater expanse. So there's this back and forth, this desire to be lost in the bigger picture, but then it's hanging on to the physical itself. So too the soul of man. It yearns to be free of the entanglements of the physical world and challenges here, and be completely unified with its creator. And yet at the same time, it knows that the divine will is to be in a physical body and do physical Torah and mitzvahs. So it's torn between these two, and it goes back and forth. And it's exactly these two opposite effects that create the actual light. The wick and the oil are consumed in creating the light. So how is the flame generated? So both the oil and the wick are combustibles, but if you think about it, the wick, if it was inflamed, it would be gone very quickly, and the oil would be very hard to light. The two of them together can actually be productive and consistent. So the same too is the idea of the soul of man. The soul has an intention to fulfill here on earth. We're created for a purpose. We all have a divine mission we're here for. And so it has to fulfill that mission. The soul wants to cleave unto God, but God's will is that it should be down here doing Torah and mitzvahs. And so to fulfill the will, the person has to fulfill Torah and mitzvahs, and in a sense consume the physical body in doing Torah and mitzvahs. So herein lies the beauty of the idea of Behaalosecha, lighting up the Menorahs, is that by this back and forth surge, the surge to unite with the infinite and yet remain still in the finite and fulfill the will of God, and to do that through the observance of Torah mitzvahs, which actually brings light to the world. So whatever the mitzvah is, whether it's putting on tefillin or lighting Shabbos candles or giving tzedakah, whatever the mitzvah is, in the fulfilling of the mitzvah, one lights up the world. And that lighting comes from that stress between getting lost in the divine and yet fulfilling the actual mission down here below. Additionally, we understand Behaalosecha haneres, that this is the way to reach out to others to help them as well. We have to be a good example unto others so that they can see how it's done. But our job is not to do it for them. Our job is to encourage and support until they light up themselves, and then they become their own candle burning brightly. Behaalosecha haneres, to light up the lights.